What's up, everyone? I'm here in my NFL Week 2 DraftKings lineup review. This is something that I did a couple of times last season, and I've had some requests to do it again this year. I know the majority of my subscribers probably won't watch this, but if you do have some interest in this for the remainder of the season, be sure to let me know down in the comment section below. Also, be sure to leave a like after the video if you enjoyed. Anyway, let's not waste any more time and let's get right to this week's lineups. Alright, so we're taking a look at my cash game lineup this week, and you can see putting up 175 points. If I could do that the remainder of the season, I would be very, very happy, because really you can see right here in this particular cash game, I think there was like 14,000 something entries. Sitting at 150 is usually going to be the average cash threshold for a cash game. If you can score 150 points, you're going to be fine in cash most weeks. I was able to put up 175. I didn't do anything special with my lineup, so let's run through it really quickly. So first off, I started with Aaron Rodgers. I went to Aaron Rodgers to Ty Montgomery stack, and paying up at quarterback in cash games is not something that I do often. In fact, probably week 3, I'll probably go back to what I usually do, and that's, entering the cheapest quarterback that I feel comfortable that can get me close to 20 points. There's always going to be a quarterback in the 6 to 5K range that is going to be able to get you close to 20 points, if not over 20 points. So, most weeks that's what I'm going for and looking to spend up elsewhere and use that extra salary that I save by doing that and spending it elsewhere. But this week, I felt like you needed to have one of the top 4 guys this week in Rodgers, Ryan, Breeze, or Brady. So first off, I think that this game being as large of a margin as it was for most of it actually helped Aaron Rodgers' value a little bit in terms of fantasy production. Him dropping back 50 times to throw, way more than I ever expected him to. Obviously, he was getting hit a lot in this game. Unfortunately, the line play for this Packers team is just rough, as we expected it to be with missing 2 tackles. But I still went to Rodgers. Also, Jordy Nelson going down probably helped Ty Montgomery quite a bit, as well, as he was able to get in the end zone twice, one on the ground and one, through the air, so to speak. It was a little shovel pass for Aaron Rodgers' 300th touchdown pass, which is kind of funny. But these 2 Packers, they were pretty easy picks in my opinion. You can see here that Ty Montgomery was over 70% owned. This particular week, he was just one of those players that I could eat the ownership. In cash games, I really don't care about ownership that much anyway, but he was just such a good play, and you can see that most of the field was on him, and I definitely would have regretted not playing Montgomery, so Montgomery was a pretty easy play for me. Moving to another set of teammates here, we have Melvin Gordon and Keenan Allen. So looking at Melvin, he did not get the ball as much as I was expecting him to on the ground. He only had 9 rushing attempts in this game, I believe it was. Luckily, he was able to get one into the end zone. I was really about to go full rage when I saw the Chargers try to have a fullback dive for a rushing touchdown twice, back-to-back plays. They ran the same exact play, the same motion, same formation, same everything. Back-to-back plays on the 1-yard line and try to get, I think, Derek Watt into the end zone. I would have been irate if that would have happened. The first time it looked like he got in. The second time, they didn't give it to him. So finally they just said, fine, screw it, we'll give it to Melvin Gordon, and he finally got into the end zone. Really what saved Melvin Gordon's day, though, was the 7 receptions. He actually had 8 targets in this game, which was the second most on this team, I believe it was. 65 receiving yards. Nothing too special here from Melvin Gordon. I mean, this is about what we're used to seeing from him. Obviously we'd see a little bit more rushing yards and probably a little bit less receptions, but I'm certainly okay with this stat line. If this continues at 20 points, can't complain. So moving to the wide receiver now, who actually had the most targets on the Chargers this week, that was Keenan Allen. Coming in at exactly 10 targets on the week and exactly 100 receiving yards. Thank God for that, to give us that little 3-point bonus there. I think Keenan Allen was a pretty easy play here. I mean, at 5,800, 52% owned. I was a little bit surprised that Melvin Gordon was that close to his ownership. I thought Melvin Gordon would be more in like the 30s to 40s and Keenan Allen would be closer to 60, but regardless, we definitely see some higher ownerships here. So that means that almost all the lineups that had Keenan Allen also had Melvin Gordon. I feel like most players are actually a little bit scared to play 2 players from the same team in the same lineup, unless it's a quarterback to a pass catcher, stacking that. So Allen was a pretty easy play for me this week, and I'm not sure what his price is for week 3 yet, but he'll definitely be a guy on my radar. So next up we have Julio Jones, and he could have had a monster game. Had this game kind of unfolded differently, if the Packers would have kept it a lot closer, obviously Julio would have been involved a lot more. He had nearly 100 receiving yards in the first half. He had hardly no looks in the red zone. I think he only had one red zone target in this game, and it was a bogus play call anyway. Pretty lucky he even got over the 100-yard bonus. They really just threw a quick little slant to him in the fourth quarter just to kind of ice the game and take a big chunk out of the yardage they needed to get. So, 18 points for Julio, not ideal for as much as we're paying for him, but at the same time, it's 18 points. You can't complain about that from a wide receiver any given day, so I'll definitely take it. All right, so now we're moving into the cheap guys in this lineup, and, we have Cooper Kupp, who, honestly, I'm okay with, right? At 3 receptions for 33 yards, he had 6 targets at 4.1K. I can't complain about that. I mean, if Kupp is the guy who you think made or broke your lineup this week, then your lineup was just not built right, because Kupp was kind of just, kind of an add-on play, so to speak, to get a little bit of salary relief. He had some potential. He was half a yard short from a touchdown reception. He slipped. The fact he even was able to catch the pass was impressive, so a little bit unlucky there. 15% owned. Honestly, I thought he'd be higher than that, so I can't complain too much. Yes, I would have liked to seen him get at least 10 points or so, but, at a guy this cheap, 6 points is not the end of the world. Looking down to our flex position here at J.J. Nelson, this is the guy who really just tore this lineup, and not up in a bad way, but really just took this lineup to the next level, I guess, so to speak. At 26 points, he did have a receiving touchdown, 120 receiving yards. He could have had maybe at least 2 to 3 receiving touchdowns. He had a couple I think he had one called back, and I think he had another one where he didn't get his second foot down all the way. So lots of potential here. It took him a while to get going. Carson Palmer is just an absolute bum of a quarterback now. He's so washed. But regardless, he was still able to get J.J. Nelson involved. Had a huge game, way bigger game than Larry Fitzgerald. A couple people asked me about Larry Fitzgerald. Wasn't really high on him this week. I much rather would have played J.J. Nelson, much cheaper. Thought he had a higher ceiling in this game as well, and that ended up happening 100% in this game. So definitely happy with J.J. Nelson. At tight end, I ended up going Colby Fleener. I hate playing Colby Fleener. He was kind of the cheap tight end chalk this week at 55% owned in this particular cash game. We got saved here. He had a garbage time receiving touchdown this week, just like he did in week 1 against the Vikings there. So got pretty lucky here that he was able to save his day there. I nearly went Jared Cook here in cash. Very, very scary to go Jared Cook or Colby Fleener. Either way, I felt like I was screwed, but I knew I needed to save money somewhere, so that's what I kind of decided to do here. And, Jared Cook had a lot more targets than Fleener here, but Fleener was just able to get in the end zone. That was really the big difference in their days. He basically posted the same exact stat line as Cooper Kupp, except one of them was not a touchdown. So, we got pretty lucky there. Looking at our defense here, we have the Ravens. I thought it was a pretty easy pick. I mean, I don't think the Browns are awful, but, I still think they're going to be prone to turn the ball over. 4 interceptions, 3 sacks, a defensive fumble. 17 points out of the Ravens defense in this matchup is about what I expected. I probably expected a little bit less. I was thinking more in like the 12 to 15 point range, hopefully, but I was definitely pretty pleased with that. Unfortunately, this ended up being a week where I broke even, and breaking even is not a bad thing, but when you have a killer cash game lineup like this and you only break even, it's a little bit, it feels bad, man. You know what I mean? So it was one of those weeks where, for me, and this is really rare, I rarely do this, but this week I decided to match the amount of cash game entries with my GPP entries, meaning that, basically I set it up just for this. So if my GPP lineups failed and my cash game lineup succeeded, I would break even. And I do that occasionally. I don't do that very often. Maybe I probably will only do it like 2 to 3 times all season. But this happened to be one of the weeks I decided to do it, and it kind of backfired a little bit. If I knew I was going to drop 175 points in my cash lineup, not only would I have entered this lineup in every single one of the GPPs I could find, I also would have entered this lineup a lot more. So it kind of is what it is. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the GPP lineups I had this week. All right, so this ended up being my highest scoring GPP lineup. I think I made my entry back on this or something like that. It was pretty disappointing there, but there was lots of potential in this lineup. So you can see that half the lineup was relatively chalky. I had Montgomery, Fleener, Julio, Keenan, and then everywhere else I decided to be a little bit more, not super oddball, I didn't think. First off, This lineup, some of these ownerships looking here are just mind-boggling to me. So first off, Javorius Allen at under 5% is just ridiculous in this contest. So, I was able to get 21 points out of him there. McCaffrey could have had a much bigger game. Cam overthrew him right at the goal line. It would have been an easy receiving touchdown. Would have definitely had a much better game there for McCaffrey. Baldwin, I was super high. And you can see here, I went with the Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin stack. I was super high on the Seahawks offense in this game, and I nearly played Baldwin in cash. I'm glad I didn't, obviously, but to get both of them at sub 10% against the 49ers at home, yes, the weather wasn't ideal, but still, I thought it was a great matchup to get here. Honestly, super disappointed in Doug Baldwin. Russell Wilson was able to put up 15 points, kind of average. He was still almost 7K, so we really needed a lot more points out of him. But, Doug Baldwin only putting up 10 points, a major, major letdown. I was super high on Doug Baldwin, and looking back at it, I don't regret it, but I guess it just kind of tells me even more here that this Seahawks offense, I'm off of them. I'm not going to play any Seahawks, no matter the matchup, just about. Looking at the rest of the lineup, it was a lot of the guys in my cash lineup, right? I went with Fleener, Montgomery, Julio. I did go with the Chargers defense, which, I was hoping they were going to get a little bit more. I thought Jay Cutler was going to be a stone cold lock for one interception. He probably should have had one or two. Devontae Parker made a couple of really, really nice catches to basically steal interceptions away from the Chargers. So just wasn't quite the lineup I was looking for. And I just can't believe some of these percentages here, just these ownership percentages. I could have had a huge lineup here. Kind of disappointing, but, it kind of is what it is. All right, so here is my Tom Brady to Rob Gronkowski stack. I also threw Hogan in there as well. You can see that the three main pieces to this lineup did pretty well in Chris Hogan, Gronkowski, and Brady. And everybody else, not so much. Everybody else was pretty much sub 10 points except Baldwin, and he was barely over 10 points. So I don't regret this lineup either. I already talked about Gronkowski. Ezekiel Elliott, I decided to go with the Cowboys defense as well. They almost scored a defensive touchdown, which would have helped. Elliott probably had his worst game as an NFL player. He had more receiving yards than rushing yards, which is not a big deal, but when you only have 14 receiving yards, we know something has gone drastically wrong. So that's probably, like I said, probably going to be the worst game we're going to see Elliott play all season, assuming he plays all season. And now I know the Cowboys defense sucks, and, maybe I'll take less chances on them moving forward. Another big chance that I took here was Robbie Anderson. Sub 1%. I had the perfect mindset here. I knew I wanted to get a Jets wide receiver. I just ended up getting the wrong one. I needed to go Jermaine Kearse here instead of Anderson. I thought Anderson, my mindset here was I want to get a Jets wide receiver because I suspected they were going to be down big most of the game like they were, and I suspected that they were going to have to throw the ball a ton, which they did, and Jermaine Kearse ended up having a pretty solid game, but, I just ended up picking the wrong Jets wide receiver, so I don't regret my process there. I had the right mindset. I just ended up going with the wrong wide receiver here in this particular game. I also had Alvin Kamara here, who, sub 5%, that was nice, but really didn't do all that much. Had that one big reception in the game. Other than that, he was kind of just taking up space out there. So this lineup could have been a lot better. I've already talked about Doug Baldwin. Super, super disappointed in him, but this lineup could have been a lot better. So another lineup that I had in this particular contest here was my Cousins to Pryor stack. I talked about this in my sleeper/value picks video. I actually like this lineup a lot, and it had some potential once again. So first off, I went with Le'Veon Bell in this lineup, and I got him at sub 10%, which I was really excited about, but he did not come through. He got the same amount of touches he usually would. He just really didn't do much. I was expecting to get more exposure, or I was expecting him to get more exposure in the passing game, and it didn't happen. So definitely some disappointment there. But, 87 rushing yards and 20-plus carries, not that efficient for Le'Veon in this matchup. It wasn't the best matchup going up against the Minnesota defense, but still, I liked the matchup, and I decided to go that route. I decided to stack him with the Steelers defense, which once again, at sub 10%, that tells me right there that not many people were adjusting their lineups before lock on Sunday, because once I heard that Bradford was not going to play, the Steelers defense, kind of became one of the chalkier plays, I thought. but not many people went that route in this lineup, and I thought it went perfectly with Le'Veon, so I decided to go that route. I also went with James White and Brandon Cooks. I didn't have a lot of confidence in Cooks, to be honest with you, but I wanted to have some exposure to him. Decided to get that in this lineup. And with James White, I thought it was a nice compliment there. James White nearly had 100 receiving yards in this game, so that was kind of interesting. I nearly played James White in cash games, but I couldn't quite get there, as far as confidence-wise. I decided to go Cup. But, yeah, so Cousins to Pryor really didn't work out. I don't regret it. You can see Cousins sub 1%. Oh, my God. That could have paid off really big, but honestly, the Redskins played well. They were just dominating the Rams on the ground. Like, I can't believe how dominant Rob Kelly and Chris Thompson looked on the ground. I could not believe that. Then we had my tight ends. I decided to play 2 tight ends, which I thought was great. I decided to go ahead and go with the chalky tight end with Fleener, and then go with a guy who was flying under the radar in a high total game. I do not regret the Martellus Bennett play at all. I went with Bennett and Cobb here from the Packers offense. If Jordy Nelson had played, I feel like both of these, he played. He started the game, so that ownership went Jordy Nelson's way. But had he actually played the whole game, I felt like Bennett may have got a little bit more looks, because a lot of times Nelson was used as a decoy in some regards, but obviously had that, I think it was like a quad or a calf injury or something like that, so hopefully he can come back and be okay. But I certainly don't regret the picks in this lineup, and it could have worked out. And, honestly, if you're playing GPPs, you're going to have lineups like that. Like, this lineup had potential. I felt like I was targeting most of the right players and targeting the right games. I was just trying to be a little bit different, and it really didn't work out in this lineup. But, sometimes you got to take chances, and you got to be different in these GPPs to try to win them. I'm not trying to win my entry back. I'm trying to win this GPP right here. So to do that, being a little bit different like I was in this lineup was kind of what I was going for. So, ultimately, that's going to do it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave it a like. Drop a comment down below and tell me what was your best scoring lineup this week. Did you have a huge cash game lineup like I did? Or did you have kind of, a mediocre cash lineup that have some huge GPP lineups? Tell me how it worked out for you. Let me know if you want to see these more in the future. And if you do, be sure to leave it a like and I will know. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Later.